I am a teacher at Columbine High School. There is a student here with a gun.
He's inside the school shooting at the Gill!
Well, I had to do it because somebody had to do something.
After shooting in the theater, I didn't have a plan of whether to die or not.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. We are happy to have you. Today's case is another member-suggested one, and if you'd like to participate in the next one, please join our $5 a month membership below. As always, let's jump into today's case by first going over the attacker's life prior to the events that we will be covering later in the video. Kimveer Singh Gill was born on July 9, 1981, in Lachine, Quebec, Canada. His parents, Gurinder Singh Gill and Parvinder Gill, were originally from Punjab, India. Eventually, they immigrated to Canada in early 1981, where, as stated before, they had their son, Kimveer, who was their first child. They then went on to have twin boys, making Kimveer an older brother. In 1987, 6 years after Kimveer was born, the family moved to the Fabreville area of Laval, Quebec. According to family statements, Kimveer's early childhood was pretty normal. There was also no reported mistreatment or abuse within the home. His mother described him as an easy kid to raise. She recalled that he began walking at 9 months old and was an obedient child. He loved to build things out of Lego blocks and enjoyed watching children's TV shows. According to Kimveer's mother, Parvinder, as he got older, he was more and more helpful around the house and frequently assisted in feeding his younger brothers. She described her oldest son as an especially generous and caring boy who seemed to love to help out with many of the chores. As a child, he was known to pull up a stool in front of the sink and wash dishes. His mother later said, "He was always very organized. Everything in his room had its place and was kept neat." The Gill family primarily spoke Punjabi at home at first, but gradually began speaking English as the children grew older. The family occasionally attended a local Sikh Gurdwara a few times each year. When Kimveer was still young, the family moved into a house on Muriel Street in Laval. The home was said to have been decorated with beautiful Indian artwork and numerous family photos. They stayed in this house for quite a while, and in fact, still lived there in 2006, at the time the attack took place. At school, Kimveer was described as polite, reserved, and academically talented. He attended Twin Oaks Elementary School, where he reportedly met his childhood friend, Rajiv Rajan. The two boys were very close, and the friendship eventually grew between the members of their families as well. In their 6th grade yearbook, it's reported that the two friends chose to pose together in a photo. Rajiv wrote that he wanted to become a doctor, while Kimveer stated that he wanted to be a lawyer. Along with this aspiration, Kimveer's listed hobbies were floor hockey, Nintendo, tennis, and basketball. In the yearbook, he jokingly listed his probable future as making people go to jail. Throughout his life, teachers recognized Kimveer's exceptional effort in school. He later earned certificates for this reason, and also went on to receive a citizenship award in 1992. Kimveer eventually went to Rosemere High School in the mid-1990s. It was in high school that, like before, one teacher noted his strong performance, particularly in English, recalling he scored 90% one year. Classmates said he often wore the same clothes: white shoes, blue-gray khakis, a lumberjack shirt, and a black jacket. He was also described as a tall but gentle guy. A girl named Vanessa, who served on student council, described Kimveer as quiet, but never rude, and certainly never bullied. She also said, "When you look at his photos and he's smiling, that's the Kimveer I remember from high school." She added, "If something happened to him, it must have been after high school." Teachers that knew Kimveer agreed with Vanessa. George Barriot, who taught moral education and social studies, said, He was a quiet, nice kid with a lopsided grin. I talked to him quite often about movies, TV, and martial arts. He also echoed Vanessa's sentiment, saying, "I don't think that it was in high school that all this unhappiness happened. I think there was some form of imbalance that started to occur." He was known as a normal kid all around. Nothing about Kimveer's behavior at school showed signs of violence towards others, or other serious problems. When news of his later attack broke in 2006, Kimveer's teachers and some of his peers had trouble remembering him, and had to check old yearbooks to jog their memory of the quiet but polite teenager. This was due to the fact that he never set off any alarm bells to those around him. Despite being quiet, Kimveer reportedly had many friends in high school. Several classmates later came out with this information to correct early media reports that called Kimveer lonely. Though this was the case in high school, as time went on, he did begin to isolate himself, but we will get into that in a little bit. One close friend of his was a boy named Steven, who was outgoing and talkative, very different from Kimveer. Steven remembered the Gill family as very kind, and even later spoke about Kimveer's parents, saying, "They were excellent parents. No blame can be put on them. If anything, they were too nice, and Mrs. Gill used to ask me to watch over Kimveer for her." Steven joked that Kimveer used to say his parents wanted to adopt Steven because they enjoyed having him around so much. People who knew the family later denied that Kimveer was mistreated or ignored at home, and no sources that I saw report this to be the case. Another friend of Kimveer's, a boy named Andrew, described him as the nicest, gentlest person. Andrew later said that hearing about Kimveer's attack messed him up because he never knew Kimveer to be violent. Andrew said, "Back in the day, we'd talk about bank robberies and watch movies like Heat. But going from that to shooting a bunch of people, I didn't think it was possible." Like many teenage boys, Kimveer sometimes joined his friends in small acts of trouble or pranks, though as far as I gathered, they were never violent in nature. Andrew remembered that in 10th grade, he and another friend secretly unscrewed light bulbs in the school and smashed them for fun. Andrew later said, Kimveer wanted to get into the action, adding that Kimveer might have been kind of like a delinquent, but was never dangerous. Andrew did note, however, that Kimveer would take things further, and always seemed to want to one-up him, saying, "He would copy whatever I did and exaggerate it." Once, Kimveer threw a shampoo bottle through a school window. A security guard saw him, but Kimveer calmly denied it and apparently walked away without repercussions. A boy named Jason, another friend of Kimveer's, said he didn't worry too much about getting caught during these mischievous acts. Jason also stated that Kimveer was never the main planner of these events. Sometimes the boys would light small fires or cause minor problems, and Kimveer would simply join in. A German foreign exchange student, Ute, later recalled her friendship with Kimveer, saying that he would wait for her every morning. She said, "He smiled as soon as he saw me, and I was always happy to see him. He'd tell funny stories and was patient when I couldn't always come up with words in English. He'd tell me to say it in German, and maybe the word would be similar in French or English." The two of them kept contact when Ute eventually moved back to Germany. They would write letters back and forth, and it seemed as though their friendship stayed as strong as ever. After all, Kimveer was also known for his loyalty. His mother said he believed strongly in standing by his friends through good and bad, often saying, "If someone doesn't stand with his friends, then he's not a true friend." She added, "He was a person who would die for his friends." According to several accounts, Kimveer was a great friend, and while he clearly liked to participate in a little trouble here and there, the fact that no one who knew him during this time could have possibly predicted his later actions speaks volumes. Peers and teachers alike were completely shocked by what he went on to do, with many of them later coming forward and expressing their utter disbelief in the news. His mother recalled that Kimveer was a sensitive person, someone who felt empathy for those in worse-off situations. She said that war bothered him, and later stated, he wanted the world to be good, pure, clean. Kimveer finished high school in June of 1998, when he was 17 years old. After that, he enrolled at Vanier College in Montreal, with many of his friends that we spoke about before, including Stephen, Andrew, and Jason. Very early on into his college experience, it became clear that he did not seem interested. Kimveer showed very little motivation and ended up dropping out after just one semester at the school. In January of 1999, very shortly after leaving school, and still 17 years old, Kimveer made a decision that surprised those around him. He joined the Canadian Armed Forces. Apparently, he had never mentioned a desire to do so, but there are many reasons reported as to why he chose to do this. Some include that he wanted to follow in the footsteps of his family in India, or that he wanted to live out a life similar to those in war movies that he enjoyed watching. According to some of his friends, though, Kimveer loved both Canada and Quebec, and often said Canada was the best place in the world to live. They recalled that he wanted a chance to fight for his country as a soldier. His parents were reportedly worried about his choice and advised him not to join the army, urging him to instead continue going to school. Despite this, Kimveer started basic training on January 17, 1999, but his military career ended quickly. On February 16, 1999, just a month after beginning his training, Kimveer left voluntarily. A few reasons why this happened are also reported. Apparently, his mother believed that he left training because he missed being home, but other claims state that Kimveer simply didn't meet the standards to stay. I also read that he could have been released due to medical reasons. Friends later explained that this failure in his first career choice hurt his self-esteem. After leaving the military, Kimveer lived quietly without clear direction and continued staying with his parents in Laval into his 20s. He reportedly did not return to school or land a stable career, but it's said that he did job hop for a few years. One of the jobs was as a shipping clerk for a telecommunications company. One of the managers there remembered Kimveer as a reserved person. Apparently, birds would sometimes fly into the building's windows and die, which caught Kimveer's attention. The manager said, "One girl was really sad about it. She was strong on animal rights." According to him, Kimveer noticed that she was saddened by this and decided to bury the birds in a wooded area behind the building. His mother also later noted that Kimveer had a particular interest in birds and often watched them from their balcony. Kimveer's manager later stated, "It's sort of strange that someone so shy would become such a monster." Kimveer was eventually laid off from his job at the telecommunication company, and at the time of the attack, he was reportedly unemployed and living in his parents' basement, though some sources report he continued staying in his bedroom upstairs. Sources claim that he simply spent his days playing video games, listening to music, and using the internet. Moving on, friends and family said Kimveer remained a kind person, but his behavior changed over time. His friends recalled that he was progressing in life much slower than them, and that his mentality seemed to remain as though he was still in high school. He had no known girlfriend and seemingly no clear plans for the future. It's also reported that he began drinking more and isolated himself from most people, including his German friend Ute, who he had kept in contact with via letters for all these years. Along with this, though, he did start hanging out with his childhood friend Rajiv, who we mentioned earlier in the video, more often. I read in a report that Kimveer's demeanor soon began matching Rajiv's closer as time went on. The report also stated that Kimveer's mother once said, "Rajiv said that it was very easy to manipulate Kimveer because he's too honest and too trusting." There wasn't anything reported that explained just what he meant by saying that. Either way, keep Rajiv in mind, as he comes up more during the case. It's reported that Kimveer joined a local shooting club at some point, and even passed several government safety tests and qualifications in order to own firearms. He even obtained a special license in order to get an otherwise restricted gun, a semi-automatic Beretta CX-4 Storm carbine. Sources state that he grew very interested in guns, something that those around him also noted. He would reportedly spend time practicing his marksmanship at the club in the months before his attack, which was also frequented by Montreal police officers. It's also reported that he got a few family members, possibly his parents, to sign an official reference letter, which allowed him to obtain at least one short-barreled weapon. Those sources didn't specify exactly what it was. He wore his beloved trench coat to the range, even in the summer heat, with someone who worked nearby saying, "I thought he must have been really hot in that long black coat." Kimveer's mother noticed that in 2006, he became unusually quiet and distant. She described him at this time as more serious than ever, and possibly depressed. She later recalled, "I'd ask him if anything was wrong, and he said, 'No, nothing.'" At this point, Kimveer owned a few guns, though it's not clear when he got them, or exactly how many he had at this time. His mother later explained that despite some potential signs of his mental state getting worse, she didn't think she could do much. She stated, "He was 25. What was I supposed to do?" Since Kimveer had never harmed anyone or acted aggressively, she decided not to intervene in any way. Despite noticing his sadness and growing alcohol use, the family later recalled that they did not see any clear warning signs that he would go on to do something horrible. His mother later said, "I never even thought to take away the guns because he just wasn't like that. He never hurt anyone." Though his family later realized that he was showing small warning signs, at the time, the family did not understand the severity of the situation. Kimveer's family was obviously well aware that he owned guns, and his mother later stated that she didn't really think anything of it because she knew that he had gotten them legally. When Kimveer showed her his carbine, she was a little surprised and apparently said, "You should have bought a smaller one." It's reported that he replied with, "This was the best gun they had over there, and I liked it." Neighbors of the family also noticed Kimveer's appearance and behavior changing. They later recalled that he began dressing in dark clothing and that he cut his hair in what they described as a funny way. They also noted him withdrawing more, with one of the neighbors saying, "He never had friends with him. He was always alone." Another one of his neighbors said, "He scared me. He'd be walking by himself, dressed in black, with his black boots." To his friends and family, although he had changed slightly, he was still the same quiet, polite young man they always knew. We will get into this more in just a little bit, but Kimveer ran a blog online in which he displayed a completely different persona than how he portrayed himself in real life. Online, Kimveer began to express himself more openly and honestly. He also became more and more interested in violent themes. This included his enjoyment in violent video games and movies, but also the fact that he seemingly became obsessed with the 1999 Columbine shooting. There is even evidence to suggest that Kimveer idolized the perpetrators of the attack, something that is common among people that go on to commit shootings. As stated before, Kimveer began hanging out with his friend from 6th grade, Rajiv, once again. Together, they would pose for photos holding weapons, including at least one of Kimveer's firearms. In the months before the shooting, on September 13, 2006, there were signs that Kimveer's mental state was getting worse. Looking back, these signs hinted that he was planning violence, but at the time, no one seemed to notice the changes. By early 2006, Kimveer began withdrawing from his social life, and friends noticed that he slowly cut off contact. He stopped returning calls and rarely spent time with them. He also appeared sadder and spent more time alone. His mother noticed that in the last few months before the attack, he often stayed up all night, alone in his room, spending time either online or listening to loud, heavy metal music. Kimveer's online behavior showed more signs of his deteriorating mental state. He maintained a blog and profile on a goth website called vampirefreaks.com under the username Fatality666. For about 9 months before the shooting, he used this blog to express his anger, despair, and violent ideas. But like many would, he also used the site to speak his mind in a normal way. He referred to himself as Trench in his bio, which read, "His name is Trench. You will come to know him as the Angel of Death. He is male. He is 25 years of age. He lives in Quebec. He finds that it is an okay place to live. He is not a people person. He has met a handful of people in his life who are decent, but he finds the vast majority to be worthless, no good, conniving, betraying, lying, deceptive motherfuckers." He also wrote, "Work sucks, school sucks, life sucks. What else can I say? Metal and goth kick ass." He also wrote in his bio, "Life is a video game. You've got to die sometime." This is almost a direct quote from Devin Moore, a previously convicted murderer from Alabama, who said upon capture, "Life is a video game. Everybody's got to die sometime." On his Vampire Freaks profile, Kimveer listed many things he hated, such as humanity, jocks, cheerleaders, religious people, authority figures, the world and everything in it, politics and society. He showed a particular hatred toward police and school officials, calling them worthless. He blamed society for his unhappiness and wrote that he wanted to die, like Romeo and Juliet, or in a hail of gunfire. This specific quote, found in a cache of Kimveer's blog, later became widely reported, as it clearly showed his desire for a dramatic, violent end. His likes included things such as heavy metal, alcohol, blood, Reb and V, first-person shooter games, baby animals, firearms and other weapons, goth girls, snow, and darkness. He listed his favorite movies, some of which included Friday the 13th, Scream, The Crow, V for Vendetta, Zero Day, and many others. His favorite video games included Postal, Manhunt, 25 to Life, The Punisher, GTA, and Max Payne 2. On his profile, he posted many things, including text posts, quizzes that he had taken, and also over 50 pictures of himself, some where he was holding his Beretta CX-4 Storm or a knife. One photo showed him aiming his carbine at the camera, with the caption, "I think I have an obsession with guns." In another, he posed with a knife and captioned it, "Taste my steel." In others, he sat with a blank expression on his face, and in some, he was wearing a mask. Some photos on his profile were of random objects, including bottles of alcohol, his car, and posters on his wall, among other things. This was mentioned earlier, but he talked about school shootings and video games centered around them. One of his favorite games was Super Columbine Massacre RPG, which allows players to recreate the Columbine shooting. Sources mention this a lot, however I didn't read any of this on the archived versions of his blog. He did also keep physical journals though, so it's very possible that is where he spoke about these topics. He also loved violent movies, such as Natural Born Killers, a film that has inspired violent crimes in the past, including the Columbine Massacre. On his blog, Kimveer often talked about loneliness and lost love. He mentioned a girl named Ute, the German exchange student he met in high school. Again, Ute had returned to Germany, but they continued exchanging letters until 2004. In his reported last letter to her, he promised, "I'm going to write to you more often now. That way you'll know that I won't ever forget you." I'm not certain why they stopped communicating, but even 2 years later, it seems as though Kimveer at the very least continued to think about her. By February of 2006 though, his feelings seemed to turn bitter. On his blog he made a post titled, "They make you fall in love with them, then they run away." The post reads, "They frolic in the meadows, they pick flowers, they say sweet things, They are soft. They are ticklish in the right spots. They are strong. They will beat you up. They are sweet. They are cuddly like little kittens. They look so beautiful when they smile. They are baby utes. Duh. Who else? Other posts revealed some concerning thoughts, and several quizzes linked to his profile suggested he was struggling mentally. Some were normal, but many were centered around dark subjects. One was an online quiz called, "How likely are you to go postal?" and the quiz rated him 84% likely to do so. He took several more of these concerning quizzes, with one being, "Are you capable of killing?" where he scored 86% likely. Another one was, "How evil are you?" which resulted in him getting, "You are pure evil." He took one about depression, where he scored 90% depressed. In a quiz about which dictator you are, he scored Adolf Hitler. One of the most telling quizzes was, "How will you die?" which gave him the result of suicide. Kimveer shared these publicly on his page, showing how he treated violent ideas as normal or amusing. Most of the text posts that Kimveer made to his profile were seemingly normal. From the ones I was able to read, none really stuck out to me as extremely concerning, so it didn't surprise me that no one predicted that he would commit an attack. Some were a little aggressive in nature, like when he publicly spoke out against law enforcement or the government. But overall, there was nothing majorly concerning that I saw him write. Most of his posts were about heavy metal, various video games, or his love for the website. But some in particular were interesting to read. He wrote things like, "Fuck life, fuck the world and everything in it. Where is my life? Where is my love? Where is my Juliet? Fuck people, fuck life, fuck God." He also wrote things like, "The governments of the world keep lying to the people of the world, and the people believe it. Come on, folks, wake up. They're using fear tactics to keep you pacified, and all those who ask questions suddenly disappear. Am I the only one in the world who can see these things? Guess I am." The post that most intrigued me was titled, "Vengeance is Coming," and it read, "It will be a quiet and peaceful morning. A light drizzle will be starting up. The clouds will be gray, so gray, just the way I like it. Disemboweled bodies litter the streets. Some have been decapitated, others hung off bridges and overpasses, yet others still lie burning, flames slowly eating away at their putrid flesh. Glorious. They have paid this day. They truly have paid." Kimveer also seemed to think that the authorities were watching him, as he made several posts referring to this. One read, "The police are watching me. They actually think I don't know this. They are monitoring my movements. Hey pigs, you shouldn't be pretending to be nice little goth girls and doing surveillance on people. It's just not nice." Another post regarding this read, "I wonder why my household has been under surveillance by law enforcement for 6 years now. Makes no sense to me. Oh, you're wondering how I know? Bet you little monkeys are. Hey, assholes. Everything everyone says or does against me is shown to me in my dreams. I see everything, you fucking monkeys. God, you humans are so inferior." On his blog, he also showed admiration for fictional characters who committed mass violence. One of his favorites was the main character from the video game franchise Postal. Kimveer admired the Postal character's attitude, noting how the character is sad before going crazy. He even wrote that he wished the game could become even more gruesome and lifelike, writing, "I want them to make a game so realistic that it looks and feels like it's actually happening." Tragically, Kimveer decided to take this into his own hands and make his violent fantasy a reality just 3 days after writing this post. In the early hours of September 13th, 2006, the day Kimveer carried out his attack, he made several posts to his blog. At 3:33 a.m., he posted, "As you can tell, I got nothing of importance to write about today. Poor me. Maybe I should stop writing useless stuff. Interesting notion, wouldn't you say? LOL. I will not take that advice. No, sir. No, I will not." In the same post, he listed his mood as postal. This note gave no clear hint of the violence he planned. However, in a post he made hours later, he wrote, "Whiskey in the morning, good." This suggested he was already drinking alcohol early in the day. Just a quick side note, Kimveer's mother later came out and stated she didn't think he had a plan to commit his attack that day, and that she believed it wasn't thought out beforehand. She recalled that he did a week's worth of laundry the night before, and had also just stocked up with a lot of saline solution for his contacts. She had inquired about why he purchased so much, and Kimveer reportedly replied, "So it could last for a couple months." Kimveer's behavior and writing suggested serious mental health problems, including severe depression, possible paranoia, and obvious thoughts of suicide. The coroner's investigation later found that he had psychological problems such as recurring anxiety, hypersensitivity, and depression in the years before the shooting. According to the coroner's report, Kimveer had threatened suicide in 2004, but it's unclear exactly how he expressed this threat, whether it was in his private diary or online. Either way, it showed that 2 years before the attack, he was already thinking about ending his life. A few sources report that he briefly took antidepressants, but didn't stick with it for long. Instead of getting serious help, Kimveer's mental state continued to get worse. In the time leading up to the attack, like already stated before, he was using alcohol daily to cope. This heavy drinking likely increased his depression and made him able to control himself even less. On the morning of the shooting, he wrote that he drank whiskey along with his breakfast of eggs and toast. By September 2006, Kimveer had at least 3 firearms, a Beretta CX-4 Storm, semi-automatic carbine, a .45 caliber Glock pistol, and a 12-gauge shotgun. All of these firearms were legally purchased. He also gathered ammunition and extra magazines. On the day of the shooting, it's reported that he carried these weapons, along with an additional handgun in a bag, though I wasn't able to figure out anything about this particular gun. Security footage later revealed that Kimveer visited the area near Dawson College on August 10, 2006, more than 1 month before the shooting. Dawson College is a busy school in downtown Montreal, with reportedly around 10,000 students in attendance, and it later became Kimveer's target. Him going to the school in August suggests that he may have been, in some capacity, planning something against the school, as reports claim he was staking the area out. If there was a specific event that triggered the attack, it was never identified clearly. One police source, after reviewing Kimveer's handwritten diary, said that it was very obvious his state of mind was deteriorating greatly over the last 3 weeks. Experts suggested he might have been experiencing severe mental illnesses, such as depression with psychotic features, or even schizophrenia. Let's now move on to the day of the attack. From here on out, I will be referring to Kimveer by his last name, Gill. Wednesday, September 13, 2006, was a rainy autumn day in Montreal. Like stated before, earlier that morning, Gill made his last blog post. After breakfast, the 25-year-old then took his weapons, left his home in Laval, and drove to Dawson College. At about 12:30 p.m., Gill arrived and parked his black Pontiac Sunfire near the school's rear entrance by the cafeteria. Gill was dressed in his signature black trench coat, black clothing, and combat boots, with his hair styled in a mohawk. After getting out of his car, nearby witnesses watched as he opened the trunk and removed his weapons in broad daylight. No source that I came across described exactly how he was managing to hold his 3 weapons, the carbine, the Glock, and the shotgun, so keep that in mind. Along with those 3 firearms, he also removed a bag full of ammunition, which also contained a 4th firearm, it being described as a handgun. As he walked towards the entrance to the school, Gill encountered a young man who was passing by. Gill then forced this man at gunpoint to hold the bag from the trunk. Witnesses began calling the police, reporting that they saw a man walking around with a rifle. Moments later, at about 12:41 p.m., Gill began his attack. He aimed his Beretta at students hanging out on the steps outside of the rear entrance and swept his gun side to side as he shot, injuring a few people in the process. The first call to emergency services caught this moment.
Il est en train de viser sur quelqu'un, là. OK. Un homme de ravage? Un homme... Il tire! OK. Il tire! Il rentre dans Dawson! Il rentre... C'est la police! C'est la police à sort!
Initially, many witnesses thought the noises were firecrackers or a prank. Some thought the screams were jokes. Quickly, people realized the attack was real, and panic set in. People began yelling, "Gun!" and "There's a shooter!" while running away. Gill's hostage, still holding the bag, used the chaos and confusion in this moment to flee. It's reported that he took off running and hid the bag full of ammunition during his escape. Obviously, Gill was planning to use the ammunition in the bag, and by it now being gone, he was severely limited in the amount he had. Nevertheless, Gill entered the school through the doors near the cafeteria. Outside, two nearby police officers on campus for an unrelated reason had just heard the initial gunfire and quickly jumped into action. It's noted that a radio signal was made, in which the officers reported the gunfire and requested additional personnel at the school. At this time, the cafeteria was full of students having lunch. Gill stepped into the building, still holding his semi-automatic carbine. From the security footage taken inside the building, it seems as though he walked straight in and past several people before making his way around the corner and into the cafeteria. On the footage, you can also see the first officer make entry to the building just seconds after Gill did, and with their gun drawn, they followed closely in the shooter's footsteps before taking cover behind the corner of a wall. Gill positioned himself near the microwaves, where he stayed put. Sitting at a table close to where Gill found his position were a few friends. One was an 18-year-old girl named Anastasia de Sousa, and another was a boy named James Santos. According to a later interview with James, they had heard the gunfire outside, but didn't react because they didn't know what it was. When Gill entered the building, James saw him and immediately knew something bad was about to happen. According to him, Anastasia was facing away from Gill, so she was not yet aware of the threat. James instinctively ducked just before the gunfire went off, and when Anastasia attempted to do the same, still unaware of the shooter, she was struck with a bullet. James later recalled that he thought she had fainted, and so he attempted to console her on the ground. Several others were injured in the burst of fire. Those nearby tried their best to hide under tables, behind pillars, or anywhere that would lend protection. Many students who chose not to hide instead ran toward exits or rooms they could lock. One survivor, who also initially believed it was a joke, remembered seeing Gill calmly shooting people before quickly running away when those nearby were shot. Survivors vividly remembered the sounds of bullets hitting walls and furniture, and bullets flying past them closely as they hid under tables. Dawson faculty member Robert Soroka, who was in the cafeteria during the attack, described yelling at students to "get down" and attempting to pull students behind a kitchen counter. He later said, "There was nowhere to go. We felt like sitting ducks." At some point not long after the shooting started, Gill made the decision to take two students hostage, including James Santos, the boy who had been sitting with Anastasia. He did this to use them as human shields, knowing that police would be confronting him any moment. According to James, he immediately attempted to reason with Gill, pleading with him to stop, saying, "You don't need to be doing this. There are other ways. I can help you." James later recalled that Gill started asking him where the police were, but he wouldn't let James out of his grasp to check. James also said that when they were speaking to one another, it became clear that Gill was there for a purpose. In a later interview, James said, "He told me that no matter what, his life was going to end that day." James also recalled that at one point, Gill asked him how his friend Anastasia was doing. Unaware of her status, James asked if he could go check on her. According to him, Gill instead walked over to her and unloaded his carbine into her body once again, saying something like, "Now you have nothing to worry about." She had died from her first wound, so thankfully she did not suffer the pain from the additional gunfire. Meanwhile, more officers began to show up and quickly attempted to get the situation under control. Several armed officers positioned themselves in various spots surrounding the cafeteria. Around 12:44 p.m., just minutes after the shooting started, Gill paused and took out his Glock handgun and fired one shot into the floor. He then immediately pointed the gun at nearby students and fired again. At this time, he shouted commands at students, ordering them, Get down on the floor." Many students obeyed. Some pretended to be dead or were unable to move due to fear. Gill continued firing randomly at students lying on the floor or trying to escape. It's reported that Gill and the officers exchanged fire at some point, but it's unclear exactly when this happened or if it took place multiple times while Gill was in the building. Eventually, Gill reportedly decided to depart from the cafeteria, demanding that his hostages stay with him. As they began walking, Montreal police officer Dennis Coate saw an opportunity to take the gunman down. While Gill was distracted, he took a shot at him, hitting him in the arm. This made Gill stumble and fall to the floor. And with that, Gill decided that he was finished with the attack as he aimed his Glock at his own head and pulled the trigger. Officer Coate later spoke about his decision, saying, "It was an opportunity. Either I took it or I didn't." The entire event, beginning with the first shot and ending when Gill shot himself, lasted less than 10 minutes, ending around 12:48 p.m. After Gill fell, police approached him, kicking his weapons away and handcuffing him, though Gill was badly wounded from the self-inflicted shot. They attempted to revive him, but were unsuccessful, and 25-year-old Gill was declared dead shortly after. Police at one point moved Gill's body onto the sidewalk and covered it with a yellow plastic sheet. During the attack, Gill fired 72 bullets from his carbine and 6 from his pistol. He did not use the shotgun he brought, possibly due to lack of opportunity or preference for faster-firing weapons. Police response during and after the shooting was fast and effective, according to official evaluations afterward. The police used an active shooter plan developed after the 1989 École Polytechnique shooting. This plan called for officers to immediately enter the building to stop the shooter, rather than waiting for special units. Once Gill was no longer a threat, police officers started evacuating students and staff, room by room. Paramedics, who had been waiting outside, entered immediately after the shooting stopped. I read that some even entered while Gill was still alive, risking their lives to help injured students quickly. Some victims were treated on scene, while the more seriously injured were rushed off to hospitals. Thankfully, all 19 people injured ended up surviving. The only innocent death in the attack was that of 18-year-old Anastasia de Sousa. Though there weren't more deaths, many of the injuries sustained were very serious. It's reported that at least 8 victims were initially in critical condition, with many needing emergency surgery that same day. Injuries included gunshot wounds to the head, chest, stomach, and limbs. A few of the victims ended up in a coma. Others suffered lifelong disabilities from their injuries. Back to the scene. Police closed off the entire downtown area near Dawson College. The nearby entertainment center, Pepsi Forum, as well as a few shopping centers, were placed on lockdown. The Montreal Metro near the college was also temporarily stopped to prevent more people from entering the area. Initially, authorities feared a large-scale terrorist attack was underway. This was due to the fact that they received incorrect reports that 2 hospitals, as well as an office building, were being targeted in attacks at the same time as the school. Cell phone towers also went down, which added to the confusion. Thankfully, though, Gill was acting alone. It became clear during the investigation into the shooting that it was pre-planned in some capacity. A short suicide note was found strapped inside Gill's trench coat during his autopsy. Authorities confirmed the note clearly indicated Gill's intent to kill and then end his own life. While searching Gill's car, police found printed maps and plans for 2 additional locations, both being schools. It's noted that Gill had written "too big" near the notes about one of the campuses. This suggests that Gill was trying to narrow down a plan for his attack, and he ultimately decided on Dawson College. After identifying Gill, detectives went immediately to search his family's home in Laval. Officers spent several hours carefully searching Gill's bedroom. They took his computer and a locked wooden chest. Inside of the chest, they found diaries, notebooks, and other personal items. Police stated the writings confirmed that Gill's mental health had gotten much worse recently. Gill also reportedly indicated in his notes that if his parents found out about his plans, he would have to eliminate them. After the Dawson shooting, Gill's mother was left deeply heartbroken and confused by how her son had changed. In an interview after the tragedy, she said, "We know what he did was a terrible, terrible thing. But in reality, he was not an evil person, and that's where the pain comes from. If he'd been a troublemaker, you'd understand it. But he wasn't that. His character was completely opposite from what he did." Friends and teachers agreed. They remembered a quiet, nice, sensitive, and generous person. They struggled to understand how the boy they knew could become a mass shooter. His mother said that there must have been other forces at work, someone or something influencing him, because she could not understand how her obedient and caring son had turned into a killer. Gill's father and twin brothers didn't really speak publicly following the tragedy. The family were left mourning their son and brother, while also dealing with the pain he caused to many others. Early reports of the shooting labeled Gill as a goth killer, focusing on his black trench coat and online activities. The Toronto Star and other media outlets published quotes directly from Gill's Vampire Freaks profile and highlighted his interest in violent video games. A few media reports specifically mentioned his interest in the video game, Super Columbine Massacre RPG. Some articles directly blamed this game, implying that it inspired Gill's attack. Gamers and experts argued that blaming the game distracted from more important issues, such as Gill's mental health problems and his ability to legally buy guns. The media also strongly criticized the Vampire Freaks website itself. After Gill's online profile became public, some news reports negatively portrayed Vampire Freaks as a dangerous place. The site's owner gave interviews defending his website. He stated, "The media likes to associate crimes with Gothic culture because it makes a better story for them." A large memorial quickly materialized on the Dawson College campus. Flowers, candles, messages, photos, and gifts were laid out in remembrance of the victims of the tragedy. In October of 2006, shortly after the shooting, police arrested one of Gill's acquaintances for making threats. This person was none other than his childhood friend, Rajiv Rajan. He reportedly made online posts praising Gill's actions and even threatened to commit a school shooting of his own. I also read that he made posts demanding $10 billion before posting photos of himself and Gill holding firearms, with the caption, "Now you know what will happen if I don't get what I want." Despite these concerning statements, authorities were able to confirm that Rajiv had nothing to do with the planning of Gill's attack. Police took the threats seriously, though, and arrested him. According to CBC.ca, Rajiv was eventually found not criminally responsible for the threats as psychiatric tests showed he did not have the capacity to know right from wrong. In September of 2008, 2 years after the shooting, Quebec coroner Jacques Ramsey released a detailed report about the event. Ramsey's report explained Gill's mental condition before the attack and confirmed that Gill had serious psychological issues. Ramsey stated that Gill had recurring anxiety, hypersensitivity, and depression, and that Gill threatened to commit suicide in 2004, showing that he had previous mental health problems. At the time of the Dawson shooting, Canada had a federal gun registry, which required even non-restricted firearms to be registered. It eventually ended in 2012, despite many gun control supporters arguing that it should be upheld. Quebec, deeply impacted by shootings like Dawson and Polytechnic, later created its own long gun registry in 2018, partly because of these tragedies. In 2020, 14 years after the Dawson shooting, Canada finally banned many of what they described as assault-style firearms after another tragic event, the Nova Scotia shooting. The Beretta CX-4 Storm was included in that ban. Dawson's shooting helped push Canada towards stricter gun laws, even though changes took years. Many of the written messages from the public left on the Dawson campus were carefully preserved by the college. 10 years later, during the 2016 anniversary, it's reported that the college displayed these original message panels so people could remember the strong emotions from 2006. The most important permanent memorial is the Peace Garden, located on the Dawson College campus. In 2016, the official memorial ceremony was held in the garden. It features a stone plaque with Anastasia de Sousa's name and a nice message. It is carefully designed as a calm place where students and visitors can reflect quietly among flowers. Every year, on September 13th, the community gathers in the Peace Garden to remember and honor the strength shown by everyone affected. Another important legacy is the Anastasia de Sousa Memorial Award, created in October of 2006, thanks to generous donations from the community. Starting in 2008, one or more graduating students receive a scholarship of $1,500 each year. The award celebrates the intelligence, drive, and determination of Anastasia. It specifically helps students who have had to overcome adversity. During the first award ceremony in June of 2008, one of the recipients was a student who had been seriously injured in the shooting, but worked hard to finish their studies. Anastasia's parents, Louise and Nelson de Sousa, personally presented this award. With that, let's now take a moment to remember the young woman who tragically lost her life in the attack. Anastasia Rebecca de Sousa was born on June 3, 1988, and was just 18 years old when she passed away. At the time of her death, Anastasia was just beginning to study international business at Dawson College, hoping to make a career out of it someday. Her mother later stated that she was a very hard worker, and said she had extremely big goals. One day, she wanted to own her own business. Anastasia also loved to let loose, with her mother saying that she loved to party, to go out on the weekend and enjoy herself. Her father also added that she was a bottle of champagne, filled to the rim, ready to explode. She was always the center of attention. Her favorite color was undoubtedly pink, and before her death, Anastasia reportedly said that at her eventual funeral, she wanted people to smile and wear pink. According to sources, many that were in attendance at her funeral decided to fulfill her wish and wear her favorite color. Her mother later stated that Anastasia's laughter was one of the things she missed most about her daughter. Another was the stories, with her mother later saying, "There wasn't a time that at the dinner table we weren't laughing, because she always had a story to tell us." Anastasia truly had her whole life ahead of her and would have accomplished her goals if given the chance. May she rest in peace, and may her family and friends find peace. Thank you to all of you who stuck around until the end. Also, thank you so much to all of our amazing members, We love you all. Again, if you'd like to support the channel further, please consider joining our membership. We really appreciate all of the support and hope you guys all have an amazing day. Until next time, stay safe, and we'll see you later.